The 119th Congress kicked off today with Republicans taking control of both chambers, and Republican Congressman Mike Johnson re-elected as House Speaker in a dramatic floor vote. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez joins us live now from the Capitol. Luis, good evening. Tell us about what happened today.
Of course, Tiffany, let's start with the House of Representatives. So as you mentioned, the 119th Congress kicked off today. The first order of business in the House was the election of a new speaker for the next 2 years. The only nominee by the House Republican Conference was Speaker of the House, former Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. And on the first round of voting, he only received 216 votes. That means that 3 Republicans actually voted for a different option. That was Thomas Massie from Kentucky, who had already mentioned that he was not going to support Speaker Johnson. He voted for Whip Tom Emmer to be Speaker. And then we also had Congressman Ralph Norman and Keith Self, who voted for different candidates. And right before voting ended, President-elect Donald Trump called the holdouts, Congressman Ralph Norman and Keith Self, spoke to them on speakerphone on the House floor, and convinced them to switch their vote right before the end of voting time. Let's listen to both Congressman Ralph Norman and Keith Self after the election of Speaker of the House.
Well, he's going to tackle what we know the Trump agenda is, and we've talked about that. I think it's the big, beautiful reconciliation package. So I think that'll be right up front as soon as we get started.
Is that what Trump is calling it, the big, beautiful reconciliation package?
Well, I haven't heard him say that, but I understand that, and I think that's a good way to put it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well, what did I didn't get anything personally other than a commitment that things are going to change. Over the last 14 months, there's going to be a drastic change from the next 14 months.
So, Tiffany, before the end of voting, Congressman Ralph Norman and Keith Self changed their votes and got Speaker Mike Johnson to that 218 votes, a magic number to get elected. Now, this wasn't without concessions. The Freedom Caucus also sent a letter saying that they had supported Speaker Johnson today, having gotten his commitment to reduce government spending in the reconciliation bill that House and Senate Republicans will draft in the coming weeks. They're also going to reduce the Speaker's ability to put bills on the floor under suspension of the rules. And they also increase the margin needed to activate a motion to vacate the speakership. And the previous Congress, it was 3 congressmen that had to move to vacate the speakership. Now it's going to have to be 9. So a good outcome for Speaker Johnson, and we also saw the influence of President-elect Trump on the House Republican Conference, but we also understand that there are some divisions within that conference, and it'll be interesting to see how Speaker Johnson manages ahead.
Certainly an eventful day for House lawmakers, Luis, but what about in the Senate?
Well, in the Senate, Tiffany, also the senators were sworn in. Vice President Kamala Harris presided over that ceremony, and for the first time since 2006, the Senate Republican Conference has a new leader, and then also this 119th Congress has a new Senate Majority Leader. This is John Thune, who is replacing Mitch McConnell at the helm of the Senate Republican Conference, and now Chuck Schumer at the helm of the Senate Majority Leadership position. One of the interesting things, Tiffany, that we're expecting to hear from Senator John Thune in his new role as Senate Majority Leader is that he will, or is expected to vow to keep the filibuster in place. That means that for all legislation except the reconciliation bill, the Senate would need 3/4 of that upper chamber to pass any legislation. And we've also heard today from the majority of Senate Republicans urging their Democrat counterparts to have an expedited process, confirmation process of President-elect Donald Trump's national security nominees, in particular Peter Hegseth for Secretary of Defense, Kristi Noem for Department of Homeland Security, and Kash Patel for FBI Director. And this, of course, after the terrorist attack in New Orleans. Republicans want to see President-elect have his nominees take control of their departments as soon as possible.